If you're a hormone clinic owner or a provider, you already know that great care doesn't end in the exam room, right? It continues in what happens next. And unfortunately, that's where most clinics drop the ball. See, I've worked with dozens of clinics over the years, and I've probably said this 100 times, but providers should not talk about money. Not because it's beneath them, but because it gets in the way of trust and flow and ultimately conversion. Now, when you first start out, I get it. The provider might be the only person available to talk about treatment and cost. But the moment you have some resources, delegate the financial conversation, ideally to a patient liaison. And here's the secret to making that work. The relationship between the provider and the patient liaison has got to be tight, aligned, and seamless. Let me explain. See, the provider is there to listen, diagnose, and recommend. They are the trusted advisor, the clinician, the person who helps the patient feel seen and hopeful. When a patient shares a struggle or a symptom and you have a service or a treatment that could help, it's your ethical duty to recommend it, not to sell it, but to inform them of what they could do to help themselves feel better. Now, once that recommendation is made, then the patient liaison steps in. They take the handoff, walk the patient through the details, and help them say yes. They answer questions, they review pricing, they set expectations, and they book the next step. See, they're trained to have this kind of conversation without making the patient feel sold to. But here's where a lot of clinics get it wrong. There's no clear handoff. The provider recommends something, and then everyone in the office just kind of assumes the patient will follow up, but they don't. Or worse, they want to, but they feel too embarrassed or too confused to ask. Let me tell you a real story I've seen in my work with clinics. A provider recommends an Emsella treatment to a patient dealing with mild incontinence. Patient is interested, but forgets the name of the machine. So on the way out, they ask the front desk, who tries to help, but the patient doesn't feel comfortable sharing all those details again, so they just walk out. No treatment, no sale, no resolution. Here's how you can fix that. After the provider visit, document the exact recommendation. Then have a brief but private conversation between the provider and the patient liaison. Share why the recommendation was made, what symptoms the patient mentioned. Let the liaison then carry that information forward and speak to the patient with empathy and context. The result? The patient feels heard. They don't have to repeat themselves, and the liaison can guide them confidently toward a decision, often that same day. At the end of the day, the better the relationship and communication between your provider and your patient liaison, the better the patient experience and the more successful your clinic will be. This isn't about sales. It's about care that connects, conversations that convert, and clinics that truly serve.